C++ programming. Browsers such like Mozilla Firefox, Thunderbird, and Google accounts are some of the real-world applications of C++. So these are the topics that are going to be discussed. The history of C++ programming, basic elements of C++ program, creating a C++ program, control structure, for loop, while loop, nested loop, array, and the practical usage of C++ programming in real world. The history of C++ programming. A computer language is a set of instruction or syntax that is used to create programs or applications. Computers communicate with each other using the computer language. C, a language established by Dennis Ritchie in the early 1970s, quickly became incredibly useful and popular due to its characteristics. Bjarne Stroustrup created C++, which is similar to C but has a few major additions in the year 1983. The incrementor or successor of C programming is represented by the plus plus operator in C++. C++ initial commercial edition was released in 1985. There was still work to be done on standardizing the language. Version 2.0 of the official standard was released in 1989. The first worldwide standard for C++, ISO C++98, was published in 1998 by the C++ Standard Group. The C++98 language was rewritten in 2003 to correct flaws, and the new language was named C++03. C++11 and C++14 are the improved versions of 2011 and 2014 respectively, in which new modules and regular expressions were added to C++. The C++ programming language is still evolving. Various groups of experts have been working on strengthening its functional and operational capabilities, particularly its implementation, specific features, and compatibility in recent months. A new version of C++ delivers a significant improvement in interoperability with other programming languages.
The topic that I will discuss is basic elements of C++ programming. These are the example of special symbols, and this is reverse words, and this is identifiers. First, conversion. Second, pay rate. Third, counter 1. Data types. Simple data type, structured date type, and pointers. Simple data type, the fundamental data type in C++ because it becomes a building block for the structured data type. Simple data type. There are three categories. Integral, a data type that deals with integers or number without a decimal part. Second, floating point, a data type that deals with decimal numbers. Third, enumeration, which is a user-defined data type. First, integral data type. Char, short, int, long, bool, unsigned, char, unsigned, short, unsigned, int, and unsigned, long. Next, arithmetic operation and operation precedence. Arithmetic operation. Examples, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, or modulus, or remainder. Arithmetic expression is constructed by using arithmetic operation and numbers. Next, arithmetic operation and operator precedence. Order of precedence when more than one arithmetic operation is used in an expression. C++ uses the operation precedence rules to evaluate the expression. That's all. Thank you.
So next is creating a C++ program. So what is a program? So a program is a sequence of instructions called programming statements, executing one after another, usually in a sequential manner as illustrated in the flowchart. So as we can see here in the flowchart, so these statements are executed one after another as said earlier. So starting from statement 1 to statement 2 to statement 3 until the end respectively. So let's discuss the process of writing a C++ program. So the first step in writing a C++ program is to write the source codes and the header files. So the second step is to preprocess the source codes according to the preprocessor directives. So the preprocessor directives begin with a hash sign. For example, is the hashtag include and the hashtag define. So they indicate that certain manipulations, such as including another file or replacement of symbols, are to be performed before compilation. So the third step is to compile the preprocessed source codes into object codes. And the fourth step is to link the compiled object codes with other object codes and the library object codes to produce the executable code. And the fifth step is to load the executable code into the computer memory. And the last step is to run the executable code with the input to produce the desired output. So next is let's have example. So I'll discuss this on the Dev C++ app for me to better explain it and to for proper execution. So we have here the first example. So starting from the hash include iostream. So the lines beginning with a hash sign are directives to read and be interpreted by what is known as the preprocessor. So these are special lines interpreted before the compilation of the program itself begins. So in this case, the directive hashtag include iostream instructs the preprocessor to include a section of standard C++ code known as the header iostream. So that allows us to perform standard input and output operations, such as writing the output of this program to the screen. So next is the using namespace standard. So using namespace standard means that we can use names for objects and variables from the standard library. And next is the end main. So these lines initiate the declaration of a function. So essentially, a function is a group of code statements which are given a name. So in this case, this gives the name main. So to the group of code statements that follow. But essentially, their definition is introduced with a succession of a type or the int and a name which is the main and a pair of parentheses. So optionally is this includes parameters. So the function main is a special function in all C++ programs. So it is the function called when the program is running. So the execution of all C++ programs begin with the main function, regardless of where the function is actually located within the code. So for lines 4 and 8, this is have the brackets or the braces. So the open brace at line 4 indicates the beginning of the main function definition, and the closing brace at line 7 indicates its end. So everything between these braces is the function's body that defines what happens when the main is called. So all functions uses braces to indicate the beginning and the end of their definitions. So next is the cout. So cout is an object used together with the insertion operator to output or print text. So in our example, it will output the statement creating my first C++ program. So this line is a statement. So statement is an expression that can actually produce some effect. So it is basically the meat of our program. So specifying its actual behavior, statements are executed in the same order that they appear within a function's body. So notice that the statement ends with a semicolon. So this character marks the end of the statement just as the period ends a sentence in an English. So all C++ statements must end with a semicolon character. So one of the most common syntax errors in C++ is forgetting to end the statement with a semicolon. So next is the return 0. So this returns the function, the main. So let's try executing this program. So as we can see, it outputs the statement creating my first C++ program. So let's have another example. So starting from hashtag include iostream to using namespace standards and to int main, and we have new here. So this data type is an integer type. So it can accommodate or store whole numbers. So it cannot store values with decimals or fractions. So the keyword of the data type integer is int. So all C++ variables must be identified with unique names. So these unique names are called identifiers. So identifiers can be short names like X and Y, or more descriptive names like age, sum, etc. So take note that it is recommended to use descriptive names in order to create understandable and maintainable code. So next is the cout, which discussed earlier, that it is used to display output to the user's monitor. So we have here comments. So a comment is represented by these two slash signs that indicate that the rest of the line is a comment inserted by a programmer, but which has no effect on the behavior of the program. So programmers use them to include short explanations or observations concerning the code of a program. So this so in this comment, type a number and press enter. So um, it explains that in this statement, the user will type a number and will press enter. So next is the cin. So we have already learned what cout is used to output or print values. So now we will use cin to get the user input. So cin is a predefined variable that reads data from the keyboard with the extraction operator. So in the following example, the user can input a number which is stored in the variable favnum. So then we will print the value of the favnum. So we have here statement your favorite number is, and we have here a slash n. So to insert a new line, we can use the slash n character. So another way of inserting a new line is with the end line manipulator. So here in this part, it will display the user's value. So return 0. So let's try executing this code. So here, what is your favorite number? So my favorite number is 24. So it will be stored in the variable favnum, as I said earlier. Then it will be executed now. So your favorite number is 24. So here, it's executed now, the variable that is stored in the variable favnum. So that's all for creating a C++ program. So let's proceed to the next lesson.
Now let's talk about the control structures in C++. Control structures are just a way to define the control flow of programs. It essentially analyzes and selects the direction in which the program flows on the basis of certain parameters or conditions. In programming, we use control structures as different circumstances occur where we need to make certain decisions, and on the basis of those decisions, there is a block of code that we are going to be executing next. In simpler words, control structures are used in C++ in order to basically control the flow of the program. Under control structures, we have the if-else statement. So first, what is this if-else statement? The if-else statement is a control structure used for two-way selection. That is, when we want to execute a certain statement if the condition is true, and a different statement if the condition is false. So the syntax of if-else statement is as follows. If and a condition within the parentheses, followed by the body of if statement, which is within the curly braces, and then after the if statement, we have the else statement, which also has a body enclosed by curly braces. If the value of condition is evaluated to true, then the block of statements within the if statement will be executed, thereby skipping those that are within the else statement. If the value of the condition is false, Then the false block of statements will be executed and ignoring those that are within the if statement. In order to better understand that, we have here an example program. So here we have a program to check whether a number is a non-zero or not. Initially, we have the usual preprocessor directives, which is the hash include iostream, followed by using namespace std, and then int main, then curly braces. Afterwards, we declare the variable number as an int data type, and then the program will then execute the cout enter a number and then allows the user to enter a number through the cin, and after that we have now our if else statement, which checks if the number is a non-zero or not. If the number is a non-zero, then the program will execute the if statement, and therefore ignoring those that are within the else statement. However, if the user has 0 as his input, then the block of codes within the else statement will be executed, thereby ignoring the statements that are within the if statement. And then after the evaluations in the if else statements, the program will then proceed to the block of code that are after the if else statement, which is the cout. This statement is always executed and then terminates. So as we can see in the right, we have output 1 and output 2. Output 1 will be the output if the user enters a non-zero number, and will be having output 2 if the user enters 0 as their number.
C++ nested if-else. A nested if statement is an if-else statement with another if statement as the if body or the else body. Sometimes we need to use an if statement inside another if statement. This is known as nested if statement. Its syntax is: there is a first outer if statement, and inside it there's another if statement. We can add else and else if statements to the inner if statement as required. The inner if statement can also be inserted inside the outer else or else if statements if they exist. We can nest multiple layers of if statements. Example of C++ nested if-else. A C++ program that checks if it is valid alphabet or not. If valid, it checks whether it is vowel or consonant. In this example, we use an if-else statement to check whether the input is a valid alphabet. If true, then the inner if-else statement is executed. If false, the code inside the outer else condition is executed, which says is not an alphabet. The inner if-else statement checks whether the input is vowel or consonant. If true, then the inner if statement is executed, which says a vowel. If false, the inner else statement is executed, which says consonant. That's all for C++ nested if-else.
The second topic that I will discuss is for loop. For loop. A loop is used for executing a block of statement repeatedly until a particular condition is satisfied. For example, when you are displaying number from 1 to 100, you may want set the value of a variable to 1 and display it 100 times, increasing its value by 1 on each loop iteration. Syntax of for loop. Initialization happens first and only once, which means that the initialization part of for loop only executed once. Condition is evaluated on each loop iteration. If true, it will be executed. If false, it will be terminated. Update part of for loop executes that update the loop counter and recheck the condition. For example, In this program, the condition is only 10 iteration and each iteration will be increased it depends the value of the input variable. For example, output. The variable that's entered is 5. In each iteration, the number increase in 5 until it reached 10 iteration. Another output. The variable is 10 and the program continue until it satisfies the condition. That's all for this topic in for loop.
So, good day. For this topic, let us discuss what is while loop. The while loop is another type of loop statement in C++. It is used only when a number of times you want to loop are not exactly known. The while loop syntax having the while condition and block of codes, where condition is where you set the condition which when satisfied, the loop is executed. Otherwise, the loop is terminated. The flow of execution of while loop is shown below. It start with the initialization of variable, which is executed only once, which is similar for the for loop. Then goes to the condition where it is evaluated whether or not it is true or false. If the condition is false, the while loop is terminated. If the condition is true, it is execute the block of codes. After every execution of block of codes, the increment-decreasement part of while loop, which is part of the block of codes within the while loop, is executed, which updates the loop counter, after which goes back to the condition part where it is reevaluated. Example. For this code, the execution is the initialization value of the variable c is 0. Since 0 is less than 3, it goes to the statement within the while loop, which prints 0. Then increase the value of c, where c becomes 1. It goes back to the condition where c is reevaluated. Since 1 is still less than 3, it goes again to the statement within the while loop, which prints 1. Then increase again the value of c, where c now becomes 2. From the condition, since 2 is still less than 3, it goes to the statement within while loop, which prints 2. Then increase again the value of c, where c becomes 3 now. The condition is reevaluated, and since 3 is not less than 3, the while loop is became terminated, and the output is 0, 1, 2.
Nested for loop, place one for loop inside another loop. The inner loop is repeated for each interaction of the loop. We are going to first introduce the concept of nested control structure. Nesting is concept that place one item inside another considered. As you can see, we simply include a part of true action, a statement, and another if then else control structure. We did the same nested another if then else for the false action. In our example, we nested if then else control structure. Nesting control have if then else within a while loop. Thus the concept of nesting allows the mixing of the different categories of control structure. Many complex of logic require using nested control structure. By nesting structure for placing one inside another, we can accomplish almost any complex logic. In a nested loop, we break a statement only stop the loop it is placed in. Therefore, if a break is placed in the inner loop, the outer loop is still continuous. However, if the break is place in the outer loop, all of the looping is stopped. As you can see, the outer loop encloses the inner loop. Then the inner loop is a part of the outer loop and must start and finish with the body of outer loop. On each interaction of outer loop, the inner loop is executed completely. A final note of looping nesting is that you can put any type of loop inside any other type of loop. For example, a for loop can be a while loop or vice versa.
Array. C++ provides a data structure, the array, which stores a fixed-size sequential collection of elements of the same type. An array is used to store a collection of data, but it's often more useful to think of an array as a collection of variables of the same type. Declaring arrays. To declare an array in C++, the programmer specifies the type of the elements and the number of elements required by an array as follows. So this is the array name and the array size. This is called a single dimension array. The array size must be an integer constant greater than 0 and type can be any valid C++ data type. For example, to declare a 10-element array, code balance of type double uses statement double balance and 10 is inside of a open and close square brackets. The double balance here, as we can see, is the array name, and the 10 inside the square brackets is the array size. Instead of declaring individual variables, such as number 0, number 1, and number 99, you declare one array variable such as numbers and use numbers, like here, just substitute it to numbers, and put the number of elements that you want to put inside to represent individual variables. A specific elements in an array is accessed by an index. Accessing array elements. An element is accessed by indexing the array name. This is done by placing the index of the element within square brackets after the name of the array. For example, double salary is equals to balance square brackets 9. The above statements will take 10th element from the array and assign the value to salary variable. So we have here a simple example code to show how array works. So hashtag include iostream using namespace standard int main. This is the head of our program. So int numbers square brackets 5. In this next line we have int numbers square brackets 5, which is the syntax of our array. Then the number here is the name of the array, and the 5 inside the close and open square brackets is the size of our array. So count, cout or count, enter 5 numbers. This is the program. This is what the program will display, so that the user will know how many numbers he or she will enter. So for int I, in here we declare our initial point, which is 0, because in array our index always start with 0. So I is less than 5. In array we always start with 0, and if we will have I less than 5 and we will count from 0 as initial point, we will just have the right value, which is 5 digits. So plus I increment, which means I plus 1. The value will increase by 1 every time we use the statement inside of it. So cin numbers square brackets I. So this is what will be the input every time we use this statement. So cout, the numbers are, again, the line inside the quotation marks will be displayed, and we again have for int I is equal to 0, I is less than 5, plus I or I plus, and cout numbers square brackets I. We are just basically repeating the things we do in the beginning, but in here, we will be displaying the numbers that the user had inputted. So, we can see here the output of our program.
Practical usage of C++ programming in real world. To the engineers who have projects where the project sites are in a remote area where the connection is not stable. For our project, we propose a unit converter can provide the users to convert units that they can use even offline. Our project proposal's objective is to provide an easy-to-use conversion that no longer requires a stable internet connection, and by providing it can be used offline. Engineers are the main target users in our project proposal, especially to those sub-projects where the internet connection is not stable.
A C++ program that converts unit in length, mass, temperature, pressure, and volume. In this program, the int main containing quantity selection menu with the outer if quantity structure. This is the output that will appear if you run the program. This is the selection menu for the quantities. It asks the user to choose the quantity for conversion. The body of if quantity containing conversion menu for the selected quantity, and inner if choice for different cases of selection of the unit to be converted. This will be the output if your choice is 3, which is temperature. It clears the quantity selection menu and displays a menu for conversion of selected quantity. It asks the user to choose the unit to be converted. This will be the structure of the inner if choice. Case n if choice is unit x. This will be the output if your choice is 1, which is Celsius. From unit is selected by user. Then enter the value in from unit. Then the selection of target unit. The program calculates with the conversion formula. Then it prints the value with the selected target unit. Then asks the user to try again. It terminates the program if user chooses no. Then it returns to the quantity selection menu if user chooses yes. The flow of the program is the same even in other measurement quantities. And that's all. That's the structure of this program.